everyone, and welcome to How She Moved the Music Notes, Episode 2. My name is Tila Pizzatella, and today we will be discussing the genre of country music, and country music's own Shania Twain. Now into the episode. Country music is a style of American popular music that began in the rural areas of the South and West in the United States in the early 1900s. Country music was known as hillbilly music until 1949 when the unflattering label was changed. In 1988, the United States Congress formally recognized Bristol, Tennessee as the birthplace of country music. Country music originated in the low-lying mountains of southern Appalachia, thinking of places such as Tennessee, Virginia, and Georgia. Working-class immigrants from Africa and Europe used Celtic music, traditional folk stylings, and African-American roots to create the country sound. In 1923, fiddler John Carson had the genre's first hit record, The Little Log Cabin in the Lane. Country music was played on instruments like the acoustic guitar, the mandolin, the auto harp, the fiddle, and the banjo. In the early days of country music, broadcast radio grew the genre. The two programs being National Barn Dance, which began in 1924 out of Chicago, and the Grand Ole Opry, which began in 1924 out of Nashville. Artists that were popular at this time were the Carter family, which were made up of A.P. Carter, who collected and wrote folk songs, his sister-in-law, Maybella, who played the guitar, and wife Sarah, who played the auto harp. The Carter family became the first stars of country music. The family is best known for their song, Can the Circle Be Unbroken? In the early days of country music, from the 1930s to 1960s, the genre was largely driven by listeners who listened to live country music shows on their radios. The Grand Ole Opry in Nashville became the center of country music radio programming. By 1931, most Americans had a radio in their home, and the Grand Ole Opry was broadcast nationwide. Joined with Western music, which had clip-clop horse-like rhythms and songs about lovesick cowboys and gunfighting outlaws. Western music became popular in this time with singing cowboys like Gene Autry and Roy Rogers, who both became huge country music stars. Also at this time, Western swing became popular in Texas, Oklahoma, and California. This style of music contained steel and amplified guitars and strong dance rhythms. An important variation was honky-tonk music, with its lyrics about rural whites lost in the big city. Honky-tonk songs were played using acoustic and pedal guitars, the fiddle, and stand-up bass, and the songs were often about loneliness, love, heartbreak, and pain. One of country music's greatest songwriters, Hank Williams, wrote hundreds of beautiful songs which have become country music standards. And for a sample of what that sounded like, here is I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry by Hank Williams.
I'm so lonesome I could cry.
As the genre continued to evolve, we begin to see the development of rockabilly music, which is where Western swing bands began to play R&B songs as well as country songs. As the genre evolved, rockabilly music was developed when Western swing bands began playing R&B songs as well as country songs. Singers like Elvis Presley, Roy Orbison, and Johnny Cash were all of the artists that were a part of this genre. Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys led a revival of old-time country music in the 1940s that they called bluegrass music. Bluegrass music featured instruments like guitar, banjo, mandolin, fiddle, and the bass. Vocals were usually sung in 2, 3, or 4-part harmony. In the mid-1950s, record companies in Nashville were losing sales to rock and roll performers, so they began to create a new style. This new style would accommodate to white Americans who had not previously bought country music. They recorded sweet ballads with huge orchestras and choirs. Artists such as Patsy Cline, Tammy Wynette, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn, and Merle Haggard were of the group that would be doing these. In the 1970s, we see the growth of outlaw music as a subgenre of country music. Artists such as Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson decided to add themes of folk music to the rebellious attitude of rockabilly to create the outlaw country sound. Popular artists in this genre at the time, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and Johnny Cash recorded together and toured as the Highwaymen. And here is a snippet of one of the Highwaymen's songs, Me and Bobby McGee. Country music has continued to evolve, and the age of the internet began and the genre exploded. This era brought country pop sensations on American Idol and rock-infused country to the radio. Electric guitars replaced traditional instruments and country music became more accessible to a national audience. Shania Twain is synonymous with this country pop sound, and her commercial success established her as the queen of 1990s country pop. As she is crowned the queen of 1990s country pop, I felt it was right that she would be the female artist to be highlighted in the country genre. Shania Twain's country music career has spanned over 85 million albums sold, and she is also the top-selling female artist in country music history. Taking a look into her early life, Shania Twain was born Eileen Regina Edwards on August 28, 1965, in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Twain took the last name of her stepfather, Jerry Twain, at a young age, not knowing her biological father. Sharon, Shania's mother, suffered from depression, and her stepfather, Jerry, an Ojibwe Native American, was a violent alcoholic who suffered from mental illness. Shania had 2 sisters and a half-brother. Jerry and Sharon Twain had a very violent relationship, and Shania reported being worried that he would kill her mother. Her parents would have terrible fights, and many nights she spent worried that her mother would be killed by her stepfather. Shania recounted one incident when Jerry beat her mother unconscious, then repeatedly plunged her mother's head in the toilet. 11-year-old Shania grabbed a chair and smashed it across his back to get him to stop. He then punched her in the jaw, and she punched him back. Shania has also reported that Jerry Twain often abused her physically and sexually. Twain reports that she started writing songs as a young girl, mainly to escape mentally from the violent home, poverty, and hunger she suffered. By the age of 8, she was going to bars with her mother, after her stepfather went to bed, to go and sing. Her singing helped pay the family bills. She graduated from high school in 1983 and went to Nashville to sing country. However, just as she was on the verge of a breakthrough, she received terrible news. Shania's mother and stepfather were both killed in a car crash. She was devastated by this news and moved back to Canada to support her siblings. She took a job singing in a local resort to earn money for her family. She stayed in Canada for 6 years after her mother and stepfather's death. In 1993, she was finally signed to a record label. She changed her name to Shania, which is an Ojibwe, a word for on my way. She recorded her first album, Shania Twain, in 1993. While this album was not a top seller, it did catch the attention of record producer Robert John Mutt Lange. Mutt Lange was a successful rock producer, having produced albums by Def Leppard, Bryan Adams, and Michael Bolton. In the 2019 Netflix documentary about Twain, Not Just a Girl, Shania said that Mutt Lange called her after hearing her first album, and their first phone conversation lasted 3 hours. They began working together immediately and writing songs as well. They got romantically involved and were engaged in 6 months, and got married in 1993. Shania's immense popular success ran from the release of The Woman in Me in 1995 to Come On Over in 1997. After the release of Come On Over, Twain embarked in a 19-month tour where she performed in front of 2.5 million fans. It seemed like Shania and Lange were on top of the world. They welcomed their first and only child, Asia, in 2001. It became her 3rd consecutive album to reach diamond status of 10 million sales. As Shania was getting ready to go on tour in 2003, she went for a horseback ride that changed the trajectory of her career forever. Shania reports, "The tick was infected with Lyme disease, and I did get Lyme disease," she said. Her symptoms were quite scary. She was always dizzy on stage, and she was losing her balance. At one point, she was quoted saying, "I was very afraid I was going to fall off stage. I was having these very, very, very millisecond blackouts, but regularly, every minute or every 30 seconds. The illness also took a toll on her singing voice, resulting in her inability to control her vocals. She explained, "My voice was never the same again. I thought I'd lose my voice forever. I thought that was it, and I would never sing again." Shania is quoted, "It was a good 6 or 7 years before a doctor was able to find out that I had sustained nerve damage to my vocal cords, directly caused by Lyme disease." Over time, Twain began to believe that she would never be able to sing again. However, through 2 open throat vocal cord surgeries, as well as vocal therapy, her voice started to come back. As Shania is dealing with her battle with Lyme disease, she discovers that her husband, Mutt Lange, was having an affair with her best friend, Marie Anne Thudeau, in 2008. She described that experience as being like how she felt when she lost both of her parents in a car crash in 1987 at just 22 years old. Shania described the loss of her marriage as similar to the loss of her parents, and, quote, "When I lost Mutt, I guess I thought, I was thinking that the grief of that was similarly intense to losing my parents. And you know, it was like a death, Twain said. It was like a death that was the end, a permanent end to so many facets of my life. And I never got over my parents' death, so I'm thinking, shit, I'm never going to get over this. Like, how do you get over that? So all I can do is determine how I'm going to carry on from there. How am I going to crawl out of this hole that I've fallen in? Just like that, you know? Shania detailed this betrayal and her recovery in her New York Times bestseller From This Moment On, published in 2011. Shania had hired Marie Anne Thudeau as her assistant to help take care of their house and undertake daily tasks for her family. At this time, Marie Anne was married to Frédéric Thudeau, a Swiss executive from Nestle, and the two families quickly became close. According to People, Lang suddenly told Shania that he wanted a divorce in the summer of 2008, but didn't give her a full reason for the end of their 14-year marriage. Shania went to her best friend and assistant, Marie Anne, for advice. She is quoted saying, "Marie Anne, don't you think my husband is acting strange?" And she said, "No, I don't see anything strange." It turns out, Marie Anne was not telling the truth. She was reportedly having an affair with Lang. In her autobiography, Shania describes being incredibly fragile during this time, being ready to go to bed forever and never waking up. She was also incredibly angry about this betrayal. She describes feeling incredibly foolish for being conned by both her husband and friend, Marie Anne. It was Frédéric Thudeau himself who was one of the first to discover the affair between Mutt and his wife Marie Anne. He had found strange hotel receipts, phone bills, and even a lingerie set in his wife's suitcase. "I did discover the affair with my wife and Mutt," Thudeau told Oprah. "I said, guys, now you have to tell Shania. This is ridiculous. You just owe her that." Unfortunately, Shania never got the truth from Marie Anne or Mutt Lang. Frédéric was the one who had to confirm the affair to Shania. Shania turned to Frédéric for support and comfort. After all, they had both been through the exact same thing. She's quoted, "We slowly became very, very good friends. We had many months of just trying to make sense of everything." However, their relationship didn't start straight away, but Shania was impressed with the way that Thudeau handled the scandal and got engaged in December 2010. Just 1 month later, on New Year's Day, 2011, they were married in a small sunset ceremony in Rincon, Puerto Rico. Twain says, "My closest friends and family say they haven't seen me this free-spirited and happy in years." Shania told People, and it's true, it definitely is true. Shania was unsure about returning to the studio without her former husband and producer Lang by her side. "It took a long time to be ready to write and record again," she explained. She reflected, "It was really more about taking independence. And just being able to listen to myself back on my writing tapes was difficult. It was an exercise of saying, okay, look, you can't just not ever make music again because you don't have Mutt. You gotta just dive in." And I was petrified, I really was. End quote. She added, "So now I said, okay, listen, I'm going to not only get back into the studio without him, but I'm also going to write all the music alone and just discover myself again as individual creative, like I'd been doing all of my youth." In 2017, Twain released the album, Now, which she called her favorite recorded work she's ever done. In an article from Culture magazine in February of this year, journalist Nick Levin looked into why Shania Twain is now popular with a new generation of fans and musicians. The decade in which she became a global superstar by making an unprecedented crossover from country to pop has been embraced as a Gen Z icon without an obvious eureka moment. In 2021, Taylor Swift credited Twain in a TikTok for setting the blueprint for her own country to pop crossover. The Canadian singer-songwriter has also been celebrated by Harry Styles, who invited her to duet with him at last year's Coachella Music Festival. "I think both in music and fashion, my main influence was probably Shania Twain, and I think she's amazing," Styles said in 2017. Twain's revival is even more remarkable because the 2023 release of Twain's album, Queen of Me, is only her second studio album since 2002. In the U.S., Twain remains the only female artist in history to have 3 consecutive albums certified diamond for sales of 10 million apiece. Twain's white-hot streak began with 1995's The Woman in Me, then continued with 1997's Come On Over, and 2002's Up. However, the jewel in Twain's crown is undoubtedly Come On Over, an era-defining blockbuster that is still the best-selling LP of all time by a solo female artist. You might visualize Shania in her empowering Man I Feel Like a Woman promo. Here, she rocks fishnet stockings, a black corset, a top hat as she marshals an all-male backing band in a gender-reversed homage to Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love. Levin sees Twain's gift as her ability to express universally relatable sentiments in a way that feels fresh and definitive. When she sings, You're Still the One I Kiss Goodnight, on You're Still the One, she is essentially crystallizing an entire relationship into just 8 words. At times, however, she has released darker and more cathartic music, most notably on her 2017 comeback album, Now. Penned by Twain without co-writers, it features several downbeat songs about the breakdown of her marriage to Mutt Lange. Twain's feminism may be measured, but it's never merely mouthed. She makes it clear in her songs that she won't take any bullshit. Levin notes that it is worth remembering, too, that the very title of If You Wanna Touch Her, Ask from Come On Over offers a pretty straightforward message about sexual consent. DJ and drag performer Lady Lloyd says that the fact Twain's songs are very differently written from a female perspective, but does not limit their appeal. In fact, Lady Lloyd has found that the opposite is true. One of my favorite things is playing Man I Feel Like a Woman at a predominantly straight, heterosexual event and watching all the otherwise cautiously masculine straight men lose their inhibitions for 4 minutes. Something about the camp abandon of Twain's banger seems just to give everyone permission to be a little extra. No matter the age of the crowd, when that intro Man I Feel Like a Woman hits, it will get the loudest cheer of the night, guaranteed, Lady Lloyd adds. In conclusion, at the age of 58, Shania Twain is showing no signs of slowing down anytime soon. She is currently on her North American tour, singing her classic hits as well as songs from her album Queen of Me. Shania is returning to residency in Las Vegas in 2024, where she will reportedly earn $1 million per show. Twain remains relatable, with her still incredibly popular music leading the way. She is also an inspiration to many for overcoming a career-threatening illness and a devastating personal betrayal and divorce. Shania knows her audience, and there are millions of fans who would follow her anywhere after the rallying cry.
Let's go, girls.
Thank you all for listening to How She Moved the Music Notes, Episode 2. My name is Tila Pizzatella, and join us next time where we will be discussing the genre of rock and roll and artist Stevie Nicks. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.